We're going to make use of this palm bract here. These things are pretty good. So is the blade still sharp? Yes, obviously after hacking into frozen oak, you just saw me hacking into frozen oak, can easily slice through a tomato skin. That's a real test of the edge holding capability of a knife. Let's move on. Okay, side by side, clearly the RAO II Expeditions model shown here is much larger than the RAO C. The C obviously stands for compact. To be honest, I really don't think they're that similar, really, with the exception that they've both got drop point blades. They both use a roller lock mechanism. This roller lock descends into the blade notch vertically. This one descends into the blade notch at an angle. The blade in the RA2, as you probably know, can be locked open by putting a pin that screws into the aluminium frame there. This is 6082 aluminium, so it's extremely strong. Okay, on the RAO C, there's no lock to lock the blade open as such, other than the normal lock on here. But what there's this lock, and it's even got lock written on it, and this lock actually locks the lock. So by pushing this forward here, this engages two steel plates either side of the roller above the roller there. Okay, so this features, there's no locking of the blade as such like in the RAO II. This one has a different lock, so it doesn't lock the blade. This locks the lock, if you like. So if I push this forward on here, and I don't know if you can, if you look in here, you can see this. Let's get that up close. In focus. So if I push this forward, this pushes two bars, two 2mm bars, so that's 4mm worth of steel above the roller here. So even if I was to bang this down super hard, any movement that might translate in this direction to compress the spring, well, the roller can't move because these bars stop it from moving. It's impossible for the knife, for this thing to become unlocked, for that. And the other thing too is, like, what's really more important on any locking knife really is this back part here in the handle here, and this is a solid chunk of steel. So when you're pushing down hard on things, and that's what you should be doing to cut things, because knives are for cutting, this cannot compress this. This is a huge chunk of steel. And it's the same thing here for this one. We'll look at it end on. I mean, look at the size of that chunk of steel in the RAO II. It's just huge. So when this is open and I'm forcing down on this to cut something, this is just pushing into this here, and compression, it's just not going to go anywhere, so it cannot fail whatsoever. So in the event of smashing this knife down really hard on something, the action of that cannot compress or cannot force this roller in this direction against the spring. It stops the spring from being compressed, and hence the roller from moving up and out of the notch on this knife. Now the notch on this back of this blade is very much deeper than the notch on the RAO II, and this notch on the back of the blade here is diagonal. So anyway, my point is when you apply a force down on the blade, like this is if you were to close it, even with this unlocked, this pin wants to go in this direction. Well, the thing is it can't go in that direction because not only is there the aluminium frame, the very thick aluminium frame, and by the way, it's only 1 mil thinner than this, the width of this frame. Behind this aluminium scale here is a 2mm slab of 420 steel, and on the other side, so you've got essentially 4mm of steel behind here as well, a steel liner which goes across the entire surface. It is milled out on the inside, of course, for keeping down the weight. The RAO II being a bigger knife and hence a bigger frame, it's got 2 bolts at the rear end here securing the side scales together. This one being a much smaller knife, the RAO C, only needs 1 bolt there. Also, you'll note there's a fine adjustment on the pivot bolt here for the RAO II. In the case of the RAO C, there's no such fine adjustment there provided. It's a much simpler knife in that respect. Now, finally, size does matter, and if you like the design of the RAO II, but let's face it, this is a ginormous, my hands are 8.5. This is a ginormous folder, and whilst it has pretty much smooth lines all over it and you can stick it in your pocket, that's about all you're going to be sticking in your pocket because it's so big, not to mention it's quite a heavy folder. I mean, it has to be heavy because it's a big folder. This is a big slab of 6mm thick steel. On the other hand, the RAO C, which is, it is much smaller, despite it being only 1 mil less in width of the actual handle grip. It's got a very good grip on here with these scales. This one's a lot smoother, but it's a bigger handle, so you can get your hands around this more. This is a smaller handle, but it's got better grip on here. This also features a pocket clip, whereas the other one doesn't. So there you go, this is pocket friendly. It sits pretty well deep inside the pocket. It's a very easy knife, like the bigger brother or sister, whatever you want to call it, of the RAO II to service, because you just have this surface so you can put a light coating of non-dirt attracting lubricant on there, and it gets all over the roller and everywhere else, and that will keep this thing functioning nice and smoothly. Yeah, and it's got some smooth lines, maybe not as smooth as on the RAO II, but nonetheless it's pocket friendly. It's not too heavy. It is a heavy knife because it's all metal, but nonetheless I don't think it's certainly too heavy to carry in your pocket. It's not going to put a hole in your pocket. It's got a lanyard hole here at this end and a bit of a projected butt end there too. And again, like the RAO II, it's got a fully enclosed back, which makes for the strongest kind of folder in my opinion.